I think India is viewed the same way now in that, plenty of people still ask me if I speak Indian.
Which is a joke because there's no such thing, right?
Exactly. And then some people might know, do you speak Hindi? And then these vast differences in music and parent languages between North and South India. I just wanted to find a way to kind of blow that open a little bit, and in the little way that I can blow it open being a jazz musician.
Right.
I guess if a CD can sell a few thousand copies, then maybe a few people got the point. But
yeah.
So, a lot of the melodies are actually based on the kind of almost exact melodic transcriptions of people answering the "Do you speak Indian?" question.
Okay. Cool.
But then the music itself is kind of, I think it's kind of a stylistic continuation of where I am. I mean, I'm still, dealing with maybe all my egg-heady 20th century classical ideas and my number theory ideas and my, Indian music influences, and, all that just kind of comes together in kind of a more instinctual way.
And if we could back up for a second to the process of recording this album, you had people that was basically like leave messages for you speaking, and then you went back and listened to how they spoke the language, or can you kind of...
Well, yeah, it was more that, the first part's definitely right. And what I did was I just transcribed it melodically in the same way that someone might try to learn an Eric Clapton solo. Okay. I transcribe the melodic elements of the speech, just like how you and I are talking now. We could probably see what this conversation looked like on staff paper, and it would be all over the place.
With the ups and downs and stuff.
Yeah, like the exact notes and transcribing speech melodically is a little bit crazy, and I think ultimately you have to make some decisions because one word can actually encompass 10 different notes. You have to kind of decide how exact you're going to get, and maybe sticking to the contour is maybe the contour is actually more important than the actual 10 notes. You start having to make some approximations. So
okay. Well, I mean, it all sounds almost like a study in something. It sounds very high concept. So was there a conclusion, or was there a lesson from the whole thing, or is it just kind of a study in how people speak?
Well, it was interesting. There were some interesting things about it. First, one of the tunes actually was based on two different people who speak the same language, this language Malayalam. So that was actually based on two different people speaking. And what was kind of eerie about that was one was kind of a younger college-age kid, and the other one was this woman who's probably, in her 50s. And where the pitches were, the resting points were very similar, like where they occurred and what notes they landed on. So I thought that was really kind of eerie.
Yeah.
And just for me personally as a composer, I think it was a lot harder to work with prescribed melodic material instead of being able to write my own melodies. It was more like...
I'm sure, yeah.
Someone gives you this really crazy melody, and you're just like, shit, how am I going to make this into something that's actually worth listening to,
Yeah.
So that was really hard. But it's kind of an incomplete project. One of the things I found interesting, too, was, the way I knew some people that speak these different languages, but I also canvassed on some news groups and some email listservs, trying to let people know what I was trying to do and see if I could find different language speakers. And I was particularly looking for Indian languages that are spoken in America, whereas, in India, I think there are officially 20-some languages recognized by the Indian Constitution, but not all of those are spoken in America. And what I found interesting was the people who responded were mainly people who felt like their language actually isn't spoken that much in America. Like, no one who spoke Hindi responded. No one who spoke Gujarati responded. And those are like languages languages that are very present in America. The people who responded were people that are like, God, I haven't spoken this in such a long time because I have no one to speak it with except for my parents, you know. So I thought that was really interesting, too. It kind of became a sociological thing there.
Right. So then if you listen along to certain, notes in the songs, should that be able to match up with, like, a sentence in some language, or is it not supposed to be word for word?
Well, it ultimately doesn't line up word for word, because to make some of these melodies listenable, I actually had to slow them down or maybe double the note values or something like that. So the essential melody is still there, but you wouldn't be able to line it up with the original speech sample.
Okay.
And everybody pretty much answered very similarly. And one of the things I tried to capture, too, was maybe kind of the emotional response, too, because I think some people reply in a more agitated way, and some people reply in a more understanding sort of way.
Well, cool. So when you say it's kind of a work in progress, do you have plans for another album like that then, or?
Well, I kind of just like to finish the project in the sense, there were some language samples that came in too late. Like I just didn't have enough time to deal with them, and there were some other languages I just that I wanted to cover, and I might get back to it sometime. It's not something that's going to happen in the immediate future, just because I have like 3 other new projects starting next year, and too much going on.
Yeah, sounds like. So I guess that brings into Raw Materials then? Is that's who you're going to be touring with when you come through Boulder, is that right?
Right, yeah, that's the duo.
And what would you want to talk about with that band? Are you playing any of the same tunes as with your other albums, or are those separate, or?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is because for a long time the duo just, again, mainly because of distance and, not living in the same city together until 98 or 99 or something like that. There was a time when most of what we played was things that we had scaled down from our respective groups that we lead. And so finally we decided that we were going to sit down and each write some stuff that was specifically for the duo. So the duo would, start to have its own identity, really.
Okay.
And so that's the music we're going to be playing. We wrote a bunch of stuff about 3 years ago. It was actually commissioned by the Rockefeller Foundation. And, so that's what we're going to be playing. We've been touring a lot with playing that music, and actually just 2 weeks ago we finally went into the studio and recorded. So
right, yeah. So you say you have a album coming out?
Yeah, it's probably going to come out next year sometime. We're just trying to figure out who to do it with. We have a couple of bites, 2 or 3 bites, so we just want to see which one's going to work best for us.
And do you have a title for the album yet?
Actually, we don't. No.
All right. Well, I don't know if we were booked for 15 minutes. I will let you go if we're running up on time. But what else would you want to talk about your music, or about your performance here in Boulder? Or?
Well, I'm excited to be playing back in Boulder. I haven't really played there in any real way, maybe ever. I think the last time I played there was like a benefit for Children's Hospital at the Boulder Theater back in '97 or something like that. But it's just great to come back there. It's great that this all lined up. It's been hard to. It's been again economics. It's hard to put together a tour in America, because the distances are so large.
Yeah, okay.
Unless you can line up with the right sorts of presenting organizations.
Right, especially out in this part of the country, I guess, huh?
Yeah, well, it's that it's far, and it's also far from other things. Like, there's kind of nothing between Chicago and Denver.
Right.
So, what are you going to do? But, so we're really excited about that, and I think those guys, that Coalition for Creative Music, or is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think that's who's putting it on.